If a word starts with hamzat al-wasl, it will not have any tashkeel on it. So there will be no fatha, dhamma or kasra. Only this small symbol with a little sad on it indicating the word sila. So do we then pronounce it as a, u or e? Well, there are some rules that can easily tell you whether you should use fatha, dhamma or kasra. But before we get to these rules, let me remind you that in order to pronounce hamzat al-wasl at the beginning of words, you must actually start at that word. If you started reading from before it, you will then drop hamzat al-wasl completely, even if you pronounce just one letter before it, like in these examples. وَاصْبِرْ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ الله الذي أنزل الكتاب بالحق والميزان. So these rules apply if you wanted to start reciting at a word starting with hamzat al-wasl. Hamzat al-wasl can appear at the beginning of nouns or verbs. If it is nouns, then 99% of the time it would be a word starting with al, the definite article in Arabic. And as you can already hear, in this case you add fatha on hamzat al-wasl when starting at it. A, al, al-shajar, ad-dawab, an-nas. So there is always fatha on the hamza no matter what. But then, what about the 1% then? Well, in Arabic, there are very few nouns that start with hamzat al-wasl. There are actually only 4 original nouns mentioned in the Quran starting with hamzat al-wasl. And for them, we use kasra under hamzat al-wasl at all times. Added to that, they don't really come in positions in the Quran where you would normally start at them. But if it did happen, you pronounce them as ism, ibn, imra'ah, ithnan. And in context, it sounds like this. وَمُبَشِّرًا بِرَسُولٍ يَأْتِي مِن بَعْدِ اسْمُهُ أَحْمَدٍ. And if it happens that there is al before these nouns, then hamzat al-wasl will be permanently dropped. It will be written but dropped, since we always start at al, like in this word. Here the second hamza is permanently dropped. So if we start at this word, we say al-ism. But if you started reading from before it, then the first hamzat al-wasl will also be dropped beside the second one, which is permanently dropped. So we say بِئْسَ الْإِسْمُ الْفُسُوقُ بَعْدَ الْإِيمَانِ. So we pronounce neither hamzat al-wasl in this case. We also notice that the lam has kasra under it, and this happens because of the phenomenon of iltiqa'u sakinain, or the two consecutive consonants. And although sometimes hamzat al-wasl in nouns is totally dropped and it is not even written, like in basmala, it is written normally in all other instances. However, it is good to know that hamzat al-wasl in the word ibn outside the Quran is dropped and it is not written. That's why names like Umar ibn al-Khattab or Anas ibn Malik are written this way. So hamzat al-wasl receives fatha in 99% of the cases for nouns starting with al. And there are only a few cases for nouns starting with hamzat al-wasl which all receive kasra when starting at them. Any other word you come across in the Quran starting with hamzat al-wasl will automatically be a verb, which means that we apply what we call the third letter rule. So what's the third letter rule? Well, it means that you have to check the third letter of the verb. If it has dhamma, then hamzat al-wasl should receive dhamma as well, like in these examples. ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة اركض برجلك أتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب. But if the third letter has kasra or fatha, so basically any other case, then hamzat al-wasl would receive kasra, like in these examples. اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون اذهبوا بقميصي هذا اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Also, verbal nouns or masdar receive kasra at all times as well, like استكبارا في الأرض ومكر السيء وما كان استغفار إبراهيم استغفار إبراهيم. And strictly speaking, verbal nouns are nouns, but since they are derived from verbs and they also receive kasra, they are included here as well. So, if the third letter has dhamma, hamzat al-wasl receives dhamma, and if it is anything else, it will receive kasra. However, there are 5 exceptions to this rule that you have to learn by heart. In spite of the fact that these 5 verbs have dhamma on their third letter, we will not add dhamma as the rule suggests. Instead, we'll add kasra to hamzat al-wasl. إيتوني ابنوا امشوا اقضوا إيتوا. And there is a reason why this is the case. All 5 of these verbs share one thing. Their original form actually contained ya right before the waw, since this is actually the original makeup of the word. And so, the third letter actually had kasra, not dhamma, followed by ya. Therefore, hamzat al-wasl then receives kasra normally. But in order to lighten the pronunciation of the word and avoid having 2 long vowels one after the other, the ya was removed, and the third letter is now in a new situation followed by waw. And so, it acquired dhamma, which is not an original dhamma. But the effect of hamzat al-wasl remained and it didn't change. And we are now left with kasra on hamzat al-wasl with the third letter having dhamma. And while you now know how to start at these verbs, it is unlikely that you would actually start at them since they don't normally come at the beginning of an ayah or after a stopping symbol, except for this verb. And this is how you pronounce it. أم لهم شرك في السماوات ائتوني بكتاب من قبل هذا. So, when we keep on reading, hamzat al-wasl is dropped as you would expect. And then we pronounce this hamzat al-qata' that directly follows it normally. However, if we do start at that word, we pronounce it like this. أم لهم شرك في السماوات إيتوني بكتاب من قبل هذا. We pronounced hamzat al-wasl with kasra as we just explained, but then we turned hamzat al-qata' into ya, which is done to lighten the pronunciation. Another example. فأجمعوا كيدكم ثم أتوا صفا. And here it is more suitable to just keep on reciting rather than starting here, except maybe if you are being tested. Finally, and importantly, when saying starting at this or that word, We don't actually mean that it is okay to start randomly at whatever word you want when reciting, just because. There are rules that have to be followed to avoid changing the meaning due to a wrong start, which we explained before in this lesson. So, in a nutshell, and to really simplify this lesson, when starting at a word with hamzat al-wasl, you will always add kasra to it, except in two cases. If the word starts with al, then you add fatha, and if the third letter has dhamm, then you add dhamma to hamzat al-wasl, except for these 5 verbs. Thanks for watching. If you want to start reading and understanding the Quran in Arabic, then you should start your journey right here. And don't forget to check out my latest book, which goes perfectly with this free course. I'll leave the links for all of them in the description, so check them out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.